Hello and good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for joining our NAU Country Connections webinar today, featuring Easy Sales with EASYquote. I am going to be your host today. I am Hope Floberg, VP of IT Marketing and Training at NAU Country Insurance, and I'm happy to have such a great large group with us today. All right, our agenda today. So for those of you who have used our EASYquote system, there is so much information to cover that we could never do it in just 1 hour. So we're going to touch on some pieces today, and then we will obviously refer you to user documentation and plan some other calls in the future on the items that we're not going to cover today. So to start off with, items that we are touching on. How do you access EASYquote? What are the different ways to get into the system? Full farm versus the scenario screens. We're going to talk a little bit about APH yields and options and how they work in our system. The historical analyzer. Reporting, preferences, and then if we have time, resources. A lot of what we're going to go over today is going to be just a refresher and a recap to remind you how it works, but we are also going to touch on some new items such as some of the new ECO functionality that we have in there as well. Some of the items that we're not going to have the ability to touch on today is going to be whole farm quoting, the risk management tools, crop hail and private product quoting, DRP, and the PRF historical performance items. Again, if you do have any questions on those immediately, though, your marketing rep will be able to assist with those at any point in time. All right, it is time to get started in the system here. So I am in the EasyWriter Pro system, and I want to begin with showing you the various ways to access EASYquote. So first and foremost, we have our EasyWriter Pro version of EasyQuote. So I'm in the EasyWriter Pro system, and I'm on the dashboard. The first way is just to come up to this top menu, this little blue menu up here, and you can click right on the EasyQuote link, and that will take you in. I'm going to minimize the screen here. The other opportunity to utilize EasyQuote is on an existing policy. So if you're in an existing policy, I'm just going to pull up a policy on the screen here, and you're talking to your insureds about different options, and they want to see what type of yield they would get if they added quality loss to their coverage. Without changing or altering their policy at all, you can come right up to the top of the policy editor and select the EasyQuote icon up here. When you do that, it's going to pull up EasyQuote, and not only that, it's actually going to pull up all of your unit lines on here. So you have the ability to come in and you can, add quality loss in here. Anything you do in the quoting screen, it's important to know that that's not going to affect your actual policy. So it's really kind of a playground for you to go in and, play around with different options in there. All right. So those are the two ways through the EasyWriter Pro system. Now, when you're in EasyWriter Pro, a lot of the benefits are that you have the latest and greatest actuarial and policy information. So the moment your underwriter or your processor is in there changing things on the policy and hits commit, that'll be available to you in EasyQuote. The downfall, or maybe not so much of a downfall, but EasyWriter Pro or EasyQuote through EasyWriter Pro does need a Wi-Fi connection. So a lot of times you would need to be in the office or at home with a good Wi-Fi connection to be able to utilize it. We do have another system called our disconnected or our desktop EasyQuote system that you can utilize without having a Wi-Fi connection. So if you wanted to run a bunch of quotes in the office and then actually go out to your insured's home where they don't have a Wi-Fi connection, you can pull up EasyQuote there as well. So I'm going to show you how to access the disconnected EasyQuote version. So I'm out on our website, www.naUcountry.com, and I'm just going to come up and I'm going to click the login button. When I do so, I just enter in my credentials and hit sign in. That's going to pull up the agent portal. On the agent portal, under the Easy Suite menu, we have the option to choose EasyQuote. When I pick EASYquote, it's going to pull up our install information. So it is important to read the requirements that you need to have the down or disconnected version of EASYquote. But when you decide to do it, you just need to click the Install EASYquote button, and that will begin the installation. Over on the right-hand side here under User Documents, we have a great user guide called EASYquote Installation User Guide that will take you step-by-step through that process. Once you've installed EASYquote, I'm just going to go back out to my desktop. You're going to have an icon that looks like this on your screen. All you need to do is click on that. Now, if you are connected to the internet, it's always going to run updates to make sure that you have the latest actuarial and policy information. It's important to do that before you head out to an insured's house to make sure that all of the information that you have is up to date. Once you've ran those updates, you then, and I guess it's actually going to show you how we updated. I thought I had it up to date and ready to go. But once you've ran those updates and everything is current, once you head out and you do not have Wi-Fi, when you click on this icon, it's going to bring up EASYquote for you with all of your policies in there and the latest and greatest ADM or actuarial information. So as you can see, it looks exactly the same as what you're going to be utilizing in EasyWriter Pro. Down at the bottom of the screen, I do like to point out that the icon down at the bottom is a Q for EasyQuote, so it's just a little bit different than what you would have for EasyWriter Pro. All right, I'm going to exit out of there, but a great system to be able to utilize. The other option that we do have available to you is our NAU Country mobile quoting. Now, with the NAU Country mobile quoting, it's a great quoting system. It is slightly different than EasyQuote. Doesn't have quite as much stuff, but still a great way to be able to utilize quoting when you're on the road. Okay, the next item that we are going to cover is heading into EasyQuote, and we're going to start by working with a prospect policy. So I'm going to go in just as I showed you before and click on EasyQuote. Now, in the EasyQuote system, we have designed it to where you have a tab feature along the top of your screen here. So this is the policy I pulled up that we were looking at right at the beginning of the training. If I am working on this policy and running some quotes, and I get a phone call from an insured that wants me to run a quote for them, I don't need to close out of this current policy quote. What I can do is go over to the side and click this green button here. And when I do that, it's going to open up a new quote for me, but still allow me to go back to my original quote when I'm done. So again, just a nice way to be able to work on multiple things, because I'm sure many of you are multitaskers. So on a new quote, when we come into the screen here, there's going to be 4 folders for you. This first folder is the MPCI folder. This is what you utilize for prospect quotes, or people who are not currently in our system. The next folder over is our Hail folder. This is what you utilize for our Hail prospects. DRP, pretty self-explanatory. This is our dairy revenue protection prospects for quoting. And then Open, you would utilize for a policy quote that's already in our system, or to retrieve a saved quote that you may have in the system. And we'll go over that Open one a little bit more in depth as we get rolling here. So we're going to start with a prospect quote. I'm going to click on the M for MPCI. In the quote line attributes window, we have our MPCI line attributes for us to come in and fill out the information. Also at the top of the screen, we do have a Hail tab up here. This would allow us to be able to enter in an Easy Hail policy, or even for those of you in states with the Crop Hail bundle policy. This is the tab where you do that. This is where you fill in hail information related to your MPCI policy. And last but not least, we have our supplemental coverage tab, which will allow you to quote supplemental products or private products such as BPM, PM+, even our FCIP program. The FCIP one is only not showing in here because I haven't selected a state yet where FCIP is available. All right, we're going to go back to MPCI because we're going to start pretty basic today. So starting at the top, the reinsurance year is going to be the reinsurance year you're logged in as. So we're looking at 2021. When you come to fill in this information, you can do what I did, just click on the column, select from the drop-down box the information that you want to see. You can also, if you don't like to use your mouse, you can tab between these fields as well. So I just tab down to county. I'm just going to type in A for Allen, and I'm going to tab to crop, C for corn, R for revenue. Really easy with not even having to touch your mouse. Now we do have the forward keying ability too. So instead of Allen, if you were, you know, I can't even think of a county that's a little bit further down the alphabet, but you wanted to forward type in the whole county name, you can do that. It's a preference in the system, and I'll touch on that later on in our training today. So I'm going to go in, finish filling this in. We're just going to do a corn non-irrigated grain quote today. Under that, we have our actually, let me talk about the level first. When you come in, the level here is always going to default at the highest level available. You can easily come down and select something different, but we do always default that in at the highest level available. Down under endorsements are going to be where we can see our SCO endorsement, our STAX endorsement, our HIPWE endorsement, and of course the new enhanced coverage option endorsement. So if those apply to your quote, you can just click on that. I am choosing ECO because we're going to walk through a little bit of some of the new features in the system today. For ECO, I do need to enter in a coverage percent. It's going to default at 100%, and I'm going to leave it at that. And then you can also select your area trigger level between 90 or 95, and I'm going to keep it at 95% today. Down under the quote line info, the unit number is going to pre-populate in there as 101. If you're working on a policy quote, that will obviously be the unit number of the unit that you chose to work on. A couple items that I do want to call out here. So over to the side here, this is our unit structure box. And the unit structure box is going to work a little different depending on if you're working on a prospect quote or if you're working on a existing policy quote. On a prospect quote, if you come in here and you enter in optional units and you finish your quote, what will happen is if you just have one unit on the screen, in most cases, if that was a true policy, you can't have optional units if you only have one unit. Our system on a prospect policy is going to utilize the unit structure rating that you choose. So even if you only have one unit, if you chose OU, that's how it's going to quote it. Now on a policy quote, the system's smart enough to know what your whole policy looks like. And in that type of a situation, if you chose OU here, but it only has one unit on the policy, it's going to know to have the basic unit rating in there. Now, EU is a little bit different. I'm going to dig into some of the EU stuff here and kind of talk to you a little bit about that going forward. So again, just a little bit different between the prospect and the existing policies in our system. All right, share percents over to the side. We always default in at 100 acres. You do have the ability to change that in our preferences screen, but for now, when you start out, you'll start out with 100-acre default. Down here, the options are going to populate pertaining to the state, county, crop, practice, and type that you have selected above, and it will just show you what is available to you. What I'm going to do for today, I'm going to select the trend adjustment, the yield adjustment, and also the yield exclusion. We're just going to scroll down here to the combo plan section. On the combo plan, so a couple items here, EU acres. If I would have selected the enterprise unit structure up here, this would be open to me to key in my enterprise unit acres. The risk and rate area, if there is one available in this state, county, crop and practice and plan, our practice and type, that would be available here in this drop-down box. Now, the price information is some information that I do want to discuss with you. So the price information is going to populate into the screen for you. If this pricing information was already locked in through the actuarial information, this would be grayed out for you and you would not be able to change the pricing. It would also under source state that the actuarial information has already been provided by RMA, and that means we cannot change it. Right now, you can see that these boxes are enabled. So you could come in here and overwrite the information that's currently in here. However, the information that is currently in here is actually pulling from price discovery. So it's the latest and greatest up-to-date information through our price discovery system. And you can see down here that that will tell you price tracking as of February 2nd, 2021. So that'll give you that information. Contract price here down below. If you have a CP option in your options section, maybe it's malting barley or grapes or even peanuts, if that's selected, you can come down here and enter in a contract price. All right, the yield information. This is where we're getting into the goods here. On a prospect quote, when you come in, your yield information is already going to be populated for you. And that's just to get you started on the quote. So in here, what it's doing is it's pulling from the county T yield. That's where that 103 is coming from. You have the ability to come in here and alter that information as you choose. So you can come in and overwrite that. Otherwise, if you're working with your insured, especially in situations where you're using options that affect your APH information, such as trend adjustment or yield adjustment, it's really important to have the true 10-year history of what's in their actual production. In that case, if you have that information, you can come over to the side and click Use 10-year APH. When I select that, I can now scroll down and I have the ability to key in the actual APH information, which is going to be very beneficial when you're using some of those options. So in here, to look at the 10-year APH information, before I start keying anything, all I need to do is key in the yield information. Except if you're doing quality loss. Quality loss does require the acres as well. But all I need to do at this point in time is key in the yield information. If you remember up above, I did have the yield exclusion option selected. So you can see here, it will tell me where the yield exclusion is available to me or what years it's available to me. I also have the T yield column here so that I'm able to reference the T yield in situations with the yield adjustment. So let's come in and let's just fill in some information here. So I'm just going to go through, sorry about the little jump there on my computer screen. And we'll just key in some base numbers here. We're going to do a lower yield in 2019 and click 80 there. All right, once I've keyed in my information, I'm now going to click Calculate APH. When I do that, because I have trend adjustment selected on this quote, you can see here, I do have a new column called TA yield, and this is going to list out what the TA yield would be for these specific years. Over down here at the right-hand side of the screen, it's going to show me what my simple average is, my approved average yield, very similar to how it looks in EasyWriter Pro when you're looking at the APH information. What I really want to point out here, though, is down a little bit further is you do have a field that says trend adjustment yield exclusion average yield is giving us an 81. So that's what we have right now for our approved average yield. However, without the TA or YE, it's actually telling me I would get a higher yield. I would get an 82 versus the 81. So let's just go up and I'm going to unselect TA and come back down. And here we can re-look at our information for our APH database. You can see I now have the approved average yield of 82, and you can see that a yield floor kicked in when I did not have the trend adjustment option selected. So again, just a really nice indicator to be able to kind of guide you in the right direction. For those of you who have been on our calls, we do have an optimizer for our quality loss and our yield exclusion, but because we don't for the trend adjustment, this is a really good way to have that kind of stand out to you. What I'm going to do is add that TA back, because I also want to show you how our reports work in situations where you have an option selected on your unit that maybe isn't the best option for you. So we're going to leave that for now, and I'm going to continue through this window. All right, down here we do have the ability to enter in location information if you wanted that to show up on reports, and then we do have the capability to key in a written agreement. So if you have a written agreement on this unit and you have an additive rate, you could come in here and add your written agreement type and add in your additive rate. And once you do that, that would apply to the unit that you're quoting on. So that's kind of a cool, nice feature that a lot of people forget about. All right, the last item that I want to show you on this screen is the save coverage information as default. So if you mainly work in Kansas and you're always in Allen County and you're usually quoting crop at revenue protection crop at the level of 85% with these options, you can come down here and click Save Coverage Info as default. And that way, every time you come in to add a new unit, it's going to default that information in there for you to save you some time. So I'm just going to click Save here, and that's going to pull us back to our, what we call our full farm screen. So before I get too far on the full farm screen, I do want to show you how that coverage default information works for you. So up in the top menu bar here, this is where I can add a new unit. If I chose to add a new unit, you can see here all of that information that I just keyed in this top section here is already defaulted in for me. So all I need to worry about from here on out is the yield information. All right. Okay. Now in the full farm screen, if you get in here and let's say you forgot to select an option or you forgot to do something on the line, to edit the line, you can come up and click this edit icon up at the top, or you can just double click and head right back in there. Now I say that, but I have that with a little bit of a disclaimer. You'll see here, I only did one unit, but I have two lines up on the screen. And that's okay because this top line here is my underlying revenue protection coverage. This second line here is actually my ECO line. So if I go over to the side and I highlight where this green coloring is, it does say that this is an endorsement line and this line is not editable. So you have to go up to that parent line or that underlying revenue protection line. So if I tried to click on here, I would get a message stating that this is not editable. I just need to go up to the one above. Okay, so let's go over what does full farm have to offer. So our full farm screen is going to give you a great look at the guarantee coverage and your premium information. It's also going to have a nice layout of your yields, what level you selected, and obviously what options you have on here. Now, if there's something that you want to see that's not on here, we do have a lot more column options. So let's take this ECO line, for instance. Maybe I want to see the expected county yield before I lock into choosing ECO, but I don't have that as an option. All I need to do is right click on the screen, come down and choose column options. And this is going to give me all of the available columns that I can choose, and I can move them over to what I already have on my screen. So I want to grab that expected yield, and I'm going to just use this arrow to move that over. Now I want it to show right by my other yields, so I'm then going to take it and just move it up in here so that we can have it right by our other yield. So it's right under the adjusted yield. I'm going to hit OK. Now I can see my expected yield in here. So again, just a lot of different options that are available to you in the full farm screen. Now, before I move on, I do want to cover a couple of the reporting options before we head over to scenarios. So I'm going to go up to the top of the screen and I'm going to choose reports. This is one of the biggest things that you could potentially have questions on. In this window, there are times when there's going to be options that are grayed out. So you'll see here they're categorized by scenario quotes, full farm quotes, and then of course as you get down you have historical analyzer reports. If they are grayed out, that means they're just not available to you in this window. So the scenario quotes can be accessed when we're in the scenario screen. The full farm quotes can be accessed in here. So just a little bit of a difference when you come in if they're grayed out. I will talk about the county rate sheet here. We get lots of questions on this. If the county rate sheet is grayed out and you're in the full farm screen, there is a reason for that. Our county rate sheet allows you to enter in minimum and maximum yields and then be able to look at those yields, look at them kind of as a whole. The downfall with the county rate sheet, and it's still great, but in situations when you have trend adjustment or some of those more complex unit options, you need to be looking at the rate yield and the adjusted yield too. And the county rate sheet is truly going off of the approved yield. So that's why when you have trend adjustment or some of those yield options, the county rate sheet would be grayed out for you. So a couple things I just want us to look at is the full farm report. We have great criteria up here. You can come in, select what coverage levels you want to look at. The full farm report is probably our most popular report for printing for our insureds to be able to show them, again, the guarantee coverage and premium per acre or in total that's available to them. So this one, very popular. If I had my policyholder information keyed in here, their name would show up here. You as an agent, your name and agency will always display on here as well. So again, probably the most popular one highlighted here, I have as a preference to highlight the coverage level that is currently selected on the prospect report. So, or the prospect quote. So that's why I do have some items highlighted on here. Another report that's popular that's very similar to the full farm report, if you go way down to the bottom, is the premium estimate report. Really, they show you exactly the same information. However, they're just a different presentation or a different look and feel. A lot of our California's users like the premium estimate report a little bit more because it does go into a little bit more detail on some of those perennial crops such as grapes. So that is available down here. The full farm product summary, I just want to touch on real quick because this is a report that's going to be very valuable to you when you are utilizing or have hail or private product supplements on your MPCI policy because it's going to show you the full farm information of hail, named peril products, etc. So you can see here that it will give you a total value for everything that's going on your farm. So again, a very useful report. I'm not going to go through all of them, don't worry, but there are just a couple items that I do really want to point out for you because they're really great. The APH multi-level comparison report. This is going to allow you to kind of compare and contrast some of those unit options, such as trend adjustment, yield exclusion, yield cup, and if you're in the North Dakota area, the North Dakota personal T yield as well. So you can select which ones you want to look at. This one's just grayed out because I'm not in North Dakota, and I'm going to hit continue. When you come into this report, I'm going to make it just a little bit larger on the screen. This is going to call out some items for you to really look at. So here, if I just had revenue protection on my policy without any other options, I can see here that my yield, as we showed you in the quoter, would be an 82. And why is that? It's because of the yield floor, which is represented here by YF. Now, if I had TA, it's going to show me that my yield is 81, and then yield exclusion does not apply on this one. So this is going to call out to you or allow you at least to look here as to, which one is going to give me the biggest bang for my buck. So again, just a great report to look at. All right, we do have a lot of specific reports in here for TA or trend adjustment. So if that's something that's big in your area, please make sure to check out that TA APH comparison and the multi-level comparison as well. For those North Dakota users, we do have a PTY multi-level comparison in here as well. The MPCI rate comparison, this, similar to the county rate sheet, is going to allow you to come in here, enter minimum and maximum APH values, and then choose what type of intervals you want to see those values in. So let me just kind of give you an example here, and we'll go in intervals of 5. And here you can look at all of the different plans. In certain situations, it's going to show you your unit structure options. And I'm going to hit, oh, I must have a bug in this one. So normally our unit structure options, BU, OU, EU, would show up in here for you to select, and then you're able to look at the different guarantee, coverage, and premium values with those different unit structure options selected. I should forewarn with you guys, I am in our stage system, so this is working fine in production. They just must be doing some changes right now in the system that I'm in. So I apologize about that. Okay, couple other items that I just want to high level touch on. Plan comparison, it does just that. It's going to compare your YP, RP, or RP with harvest price exclusion. The unit structure comparison, very similar. It's your basic unit, enterprise unit, and optional units, just being able to compare them. I'm going to go down to the bottom of the screen. I just want to point out to everybody as well, our batch estimates window that we have available. In here, you have the capability to key in your agency information and do a lookup. And when you do that, I only have one policy in my training agency, but all of your policies would display here. And this window gives you the ability to do batch estimates. So if you wanted to just start off your season by printing out for all of your different insureds a full farm quote to say, this is what you have today. Here are some other coverage level options that you could consider. You can just do that in a mass batch print and have that available to be able to give out to your insureds. So just a little bit of a time saver by using that batch estimates option. Okay, we're moving right along. Other item in here is application. If you are talking to your insured and they are loving what you are quoting for them and they want to sign up right away, you can come right up to the top of the screen. And you can either do a hard copy application, so you can do the MPCI application, have them read through, they can sign right there, or you can even get them started on doing a create a temp MPCI policy. So you could click on this, as long as you're in the Easy Writer Pro EASYquote version, it'll take you right in to create a temp MPCI policy. So those are available to you. All right, I do see some questions coming through. I'm not ignoring you guys. I'm just trying to stay on time here. So I will definitely try and get to them here shortly. Okay, now this is our full farm screen. We're going to head over now to the scenario screen because I want to show you all the great things we can do there. So right now I'm on my ECO line. You can see here this scenario button is grayed out. Again, it's because I'm on ECO. I need to go up to the parent line. I'm now going to click this scenario option here. In the scenario screen, it is going to show you in a bar chart look and feel what you have as your quote. In here, you can play around with different options to see, again, what will benefit your insured. So right now, we have ECO at a 95%. Maybe we want to look to see, what's the premium going to be if they only chose to go with ECO at a 90%. So it's going to open up what I already have quoted, and it's going to allow me to change what I want to change. I could also get rid of a unit option if I wanted to. So I'm going to hit save, and now I'm looking at my 95% ECO and my 90% ECO. Let's just add one more scenario. Maybe I want to show them what it would just look like with SCO. So I'm going to get rid of ECO, add SCO, and click Save. So again, these colors down here are going to represent the different scenarios listed up above, in addition to the coverage and premium information here down below. Now, if I wanted to see these values down here side by side with each other, I just need to click on this gray space or header area before those options. And when I do that, you can now see the comparison of each of them side by side for those different areas. Just a nice area to kind of play around with different options and show your insureds how their premiums or yields could be adjusted by adding or removing different options or endorsements. Up at the top of the screen, if they're evaluating this information and they choose to, not do EASYquote at 95%, but they want to do the EASYquote at 90%, if they like one of these values, you can actually come up here, find the scenario that they like, click on this hamburger menu, and you can choose to save that new scenario back to your full farm screen. So that would then be the scenario that you're quoting the premium on and looking at, on the full farm reports. So just making sure that you guys are aware that that exists for you as well. Okay, over on the side here, I do want to mention that you can add different levels. It gets a little busy and a little crazy the more levels you add. If you add multiple levels, you can see here that these labels kind of get a little misaligned. You can come down and do vertical labels as an option, which will allow them just to be straight up from the actual bar grid for what your scenario is. I'm actually going to uncheck that because I can read it better the way that they are right now, and we'll get rid of that 70%. The other item that I want to show you in this window is our indemnity what-if situations. So right now, if you come over, for graph settings or graph types, we're on insurance cost. I'm going to change that over to insurance indemnity. And when I do that, you can see everything bottom lined out, and that's correct. I don't have any indemnity yet on this policy. However, if I want to mess around with some what-if scenarios, I could come in here and I could enter in a harvest price of $5.50. I could then, if I want to look at, maybe my harvest yield came in low at 60. As I start to do that, you can see in the chart your indemnity what-if payouts. Now, from a group perspective, so this group is actually going to pertain to your final county yield. What I can do here is, let's just say that final county yield comes in low as well. And again, you can see how that shifts. It's going to break down to your underlying policy or your revenue protection indemnity, then your county yield indemnity, and then give you a total. So if your insureds, again, want to see, well, how would I have turned out in this type of a situation? This is an area where you can come in and play with that info. All right, just a reminder, on the report screen or on the reports menu, when you come in here, if you are on the scenario screen, all of the full farm reports are going to be grayed out for you. And that's because you're on the scenario screen. So here are your options to print. So in here, it's basically your screen quote, or if I didn't have TA on my policy, I could do a comparison county rate sheet report too if I wanted to. All right, I know time is going so fast. So that is the scenario screen. Let's hop over to historical. Now, as I had mentioned before, with historical, as I had mentioned before, I'm in our training system, and our training system actually has some new great features that are coming out to you tonight. So if you go in after this training and you say, mine doesn't look like that, there's good reason. It will be released tonight. So in our historical screen, what you're going to see when you come in, I'm actually going to flip this over to plan here, is you're going to see historical information for your quote. So it can go back, up to I believe past even 20 years when you come in here. And really when you come in, it's going to look at your revenue protection policy initially. So here it's going to show you what's my actual yield history been. If you remember, I keyed in information in that APH, and so that's why it has some actual info. It's going to give us the projected prices, the harvest prices, all of that fun stuff. This works really nice on an existing policy quote because it'll pull up all of your details. What it's going to do then too is it's also going to show you the what if indemnity values that would be associated with those years. Now in this screen, it does on a policy quote, it takes all of your units that are related to the state, county, crop, practice, and type, and it summarizes them in here for you. So just so you know, you're not looking at one unit at a time, you're actually looking at a summary of the units. But again, this gives you a great place to look at, you know, what different types of situations would I have ran across with those yields. Also, if you're really digging into ECO or SEO right now, if you come down under settings, you can come to presentation type and click on endorsement only. And this is going to give you information on, again, what if indemnities for ECO or SEO. What would have happened in the last 10 years if I would have had ECO or ECO would have been available to me? You can look at this in a net indemnity perspective if you look at this presentation value, and net indemnity just means indemnity minus producer premium, or you could look at it as a total premium. So if you're trying to tell your insureds ECO is going to benefit you, you could utilize these charts to really help to show historically what would have happened if ECO would have been available. The other thing I want to show you in here real quick is I'm going to go over under historical indemnities and click on summary grid. When I do that, this is going to give me, whether you're data driven or chart driven, this is going to give you the data. So it's going to give you the historical average information and summary information pertaining to your policy or your prospect quote. Again, this is best utilized on a policy quote if you're really looking for the guts of that, you know, indemnity kind of what if look and feel. Everything in here is driven by the settings. So which years you're looking at, which coverage levels, etc. We have some great user documentation on this window alone that's available in our tips and tricks. So if you're interested in learning more, I recommend heading out there and taking a peek at everything that's available. One other item though, before I get too far, as I mentioned, this is kind of a little bit different than what you'll see in production today, but we do, again, if you're interested in ECO, we do have really another great chart that's available to you. It's your producer versus county yield comparison chart. So you can come in here and see, you know, how has the county yield reflected compared to my actual producer APH information. And again, this is only going to be valuable if you have APH data keyed in already for you. We do also have a historical price chart that's coming out tonight and a trigger yield chart that's coming out tonight. So these three items you'll see tomorrow when you come into the screen. All right, just to make sure we have time, I do want to hop over to more of our policy quote information. So I am going to come in and I'm actually going to just do that little green plus sign up at the top of the screen. And we're going to come in and do a policy quote. So I'm going to choose open this time as my folder. Couple things in here that really I utilize a lot is the line of business. You can look up MPCI, HAIL, or DRP in here. I notoriously come in, type in my policy number, hit search, and it can't find my policy. And it's because I'm looking for HAIL. I don't know why, I just have a hard time remembering to click this. So if you know we have a policy in the system, it doesn't come up, just make sure you're looking at the right line of business. Policies are quotes. So you are looking for an existing policy, or I am right now. But as I mentioned, you can also retrieve quotes that you've saved in here, and you can look at your quotes or you can look at all quotes. And this is really, really important, especially from a support standpoint. When you save your quotes in the system, you have the option to share them privately, or you can share them what you can share them to all. And so, and when I say all that means is it's people in your agency. The nice thing about sharing all is if you have a support issue or if you have a question on a quote, if you share it to all, we have the ability, call center or your marketing rep has the ability to go in and see that. So just a nice thing to remember when you come in here. And a lot of times from a support angle, if you do feel or questioning something on your quote, we'll ask you, can you share that all for us so that we have the ability to go in and see it? Okay, I'm going to pull up a policy. I'm going to talk really fast because I'm running short on time here. But again, when I come into a policy, all of that data is going to pre-populate in here for me. So I can look at my true policy. I can come in here, play with the information without ever affecting the real policy. Some items that I want to point out in here that people tend to forget. So as I come in, if I want to quote, you can see here almost all of my lines, none of them have acres. So to quote and actually get some premium values, I need to put in some type of a default acreage so I can see what's going on. So what I'm going to do, this is available up in this top menu area. If I choose the arrow, I can go into quick edit, or I can just right click on the line and choose quick edit here as well. What this screen offers you is, first of all, down in the lower left-hand corner, the ability to come in and do an auto update on acres or on share if needed. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to auto update in here. So I have acres now. So you can see here on all these lines, I have acres. I chose a policy that already has current APH information, but if I chose a policy where I still needed to key in that info, I can actually come up to the top here and do enter previous year APH info, click on that, and I can key it in here just like I would in the quick APH window in EasyWriter Pro. So really fast, gives me up-to-date information, all in this screen. So again, really valuable screen that I think just a lot of people tend to overlook, that's available to you in here. So I did want that 100 acres saved. I'm going to come down here, hit save at the bottom of my screen. When I do that, you can see now I have some premium to work with. Speaking of quick APH, if I came in here on an existing policy and some of my yields were showing as red in here, that means that I do not have my current year APH information up to date. So it's, in today's world, it would mean I'm missing the 2020 information. So it's just an indicator to you that, your quote might not be as accurate as you want it to be because we are missing that true yield information. If you wanted to come in here and again, play around with different options, again, you just need to double click on the line. It'll open up that info for you. The used 10-year APH information will automatically be checked because it's pulling right out of EasyWriter Pro, and it's going to show you all of that info down below. The other thing on a policy quote that is really valuable for your insureds is when you come in, this is deceiving because it's not with the reports, but we have a report. I'm going to right click and it's called Comparison Summary. And what the comparison summary report offers you is it takes your 2021 year, so today, and it compares it against last year. And just right from a comparison look and feel, it's going to show your insured, if you don't change anything, this is what you're looking at for a coverage, guarantee, and premium. So this policy, for 2021, you can see there's an increase in premium here. So I'm just giving them a direct comparison from last year to this year. So then you can come up and fill them in as to why. It looks like the price is $447 right now this year. It was $388 last year. The volatility is increased. You can look at all of that information just by clicking on this report. Now, with a comparison summary report, it does take all of your units and summarizes them for the same state, county, practice, and type. So this is kind of giving you a summarized look and feel at, what did I choose? Corn, revenue protection, irrigated grain. Over on the side here, it's also giving you the summarized yield for those for those units. And you can choose to have that yield display as a simple average yield. So if you're kind of looking at, God, maybe they want to add some added land, you know, you can come in here and summarize this information to be able to look at that yield information. Or maybe you want to look at it from a weighted average perspective of where am I sitting with all of those units. So again, comparison summary, and you can get to this by just highlighting, right-clicking, and choosing comparison summary. The other item I'm not going to go too in depth on, but I do want to show you is the rotate crop option. If you work with insureds that do crop rotation, you have the ability in here to, first of all, you could either have them select a year from their APH database that we would pull those acres from, or if you're truly rotating crops and your unit structure is set up right, you could choose to flip your corn with your soybeans. So that is available in here as well. We have another great tips and tricks on that. Another popular item that I want to show you is our average roll-up. So this is going to work similar to that comparison screen that we just looked at. If I do an average roll-up, what that does is it opens a new tab for me at the top of the screen. And what it did is it took all of my units and by, again, state, county, crop, practice, and type, it has now summarized them for me. So I'm looking at a condensed version of my policy to be able to see that yield information. And again, these yields you can either look at in a weighted average or a simple average. And I'll show you where you can change the preferences for that. All right, I know I'm moving fast, guys. All right, one other thing that we get lots of questions on that I want to show you. I'm going back to that initial policy that we started with because Illinois does have a hail rate book available already. We get a lot of questions on, I want a hail policy set up similar to my MPCI policy, but I don't want to start from scratch. Can I do a standalone hail policy? Absolutely. So right now I have an MPCI policy on my screen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to Edit, and I'm going to choose Create Standalone Hail Quote. When I do that, it is going to ask me, you know, what units do you want to have in your hail quote? I'm going to select all, and then you do need to come over and choose your policy form and your coverage per acre. And the nice thing here, I only have 2 units, so it's not, you know, overwhelming to me, but you do have the option to right click and say apply policy form code to all similar lines. And when I do that, it automatically pre-populates to save you some time and apply coverage per acre to all similar lines. So again, I did that on here. I hit create quote. I hope you guys can see I have my webinar thing kind of hanging down a little bit low, but up at the top of the screen, again, it just created a new tab for me. This is now my hail quote based off of my MPCI policy. If I wanted to proceed with doing an application for this, I can come up to the top of the screen, do application, hail application, and get that submitted in. So again, another nice feature that people tend to forget is available to them. All right, in our last 6 minutes, and I promise I'll try and get to questions here too, I do want to touch on preferences for you. So I'm going to go up to the top of the screen and I'm going to choose Edit Preferences. Oh, actually, let me get out of hail here real quick. We'll go to a MPCI policy. Choose Preferences. Preference screen, I'm not going to go over everything in here, but I do want to give you some highlights. So under the General tab, the Enable Smart Combo boxes, that will allow you, way back at the beginning of the call, if you wanted to type in Allen, A-L-L-E-N, and have it go directly to Allen, this box being checked will allow you to do so. Enable Scenario View as the default. When you do a quote in Full Farm, the minute you hit save, if you want it to jump over to that scenario screen so you can start playing around right away, check this box. It'll allow you to do that. Here we have some great historical options for you, PRF options. We're not going to go over those. This is your default acre section if you wanted to change that from 100. And this is the area, if you remember when we were doing the prospect quote, when I checked the box that said save this coverage info as default, this is that default information. So you can see here it captured all of the state, county, crop practice, and type down to the option level for me in here. That's what's going to show up every time I add a new unit. If I change my mind and I don't want that to show anymore, I just have to hit clear and it'll go away. Okay, the full farm screen. Here's your grid column options again. There is more information down below if you wanted to, experiment and play in here. And then next, I'm going to go down to reports. So we get a lot of calls on policy quotes. When I print my policy quote, none of my units are showing. If your lines are 0, or if you have 0 acres on your unit, they don't automatically print on those quotes. Well, actually they do, because the default is yes. However, if you don't want them to, or if you do want them to, it doesn't matter. This option here will enable those lines with 0 acres to show up on your quotes. So just make sure to check that if you want to see those. On the comparison summary and the average roll-up option, if you want to see simple average versus weighted average, this is where you check those boxes. And then all of your reports. I know everybody's different. If you want to see per acre values versus total acre values or both, this is your selection option right here. And if you guys remember earlier, my quote lines were always highlighted. It always highlighted the coverage level that I had selected. This is where your highlighting options are available to you. I know that was fast. There's much more in there to go over, but that is all I'm going to touch on for now. All right. Okay. For those of you, I do want to show you just one other item. Let me go back out. I timed out on the agent portal, but I do want to come back out to EASYsuite, EASYquote. When you come in here, user documentation on everything that we went over is available on the agent portal. My favorite EASYquote tips and tricks, I'm just going to pull it up here really quick, hopefully. This tips and tricks is going to give you start to finish. Oh, it didn't go quite where I wanted it to. Let's go. It's going to give you start to finish training information on EASYquote. Hold on, I got to find it. Probably flew right past it. There we go. You got to change that link to make it go directly here. When you come into the trading suite, it has it separated into installation questions. So getting started, MPCI application and quoting basics, the historical analyzer, reporting. If you have any questions on reporting, we detail them all right here for you. Crop hail, and then specialized crop quoting. How do you quote hipwheat? How do you do apples, nursery, PRF, whole farm? It's all available in this tips and tricks. So we'll make sure to send that out in the recap email so that you have it. And if you want to stay on the call and hear answers to questions, please feel free to do so. But otherwise, I'm right at my minute mark. So I appreciate your time today and for joining the Connections call. If you like today's call, please make sure to sign up for more in the future. Otherwise, thanks so much, everybody, for joining.